Do-hyun stared at his screen in disbelief. The numbers couldn't be right. He checked them again, then a third time. But the data from the strange probe remained the same. According to these readings, the device had come from a planet that could not, support life. The senior researcher's office in the Galactic Council's Science Division was usually neat and organized. Today, it looked like a data storm had hit it. Holographic displays filled the air with charts and figures, while his desk was buried under stacks of old research papers he pulled from the archives. "Computer, run the atmospheric analysis one more time," he said, rubbing his tired eyes. The machine beeped and displayed the results. They hadn't changed. Earth's atmosphere contained 21% oxygen. The number glowed mockingly on his screen. Most spacefaring civilizations evolved on worlds with oxygen levels between 5% and 15%. Anything higher was considered toxic. Yet this probe, this impossible object, came from a world that was literally poisonous by galactic standards. And that wasn't even the worst part. The gravity readings showed 9.8 meters per second squared. That was nearly 1.5 times the galactic average. The creatures on this world, if they truly existed, lived their entire lives under crushing pressure that would kill most known species. Do-hyun picked up the small probe that had started all this chaos. It was surprisingly well built, despite its primitive technology. The metal was sturdy, the circuits basic but efficient. Someone had etched words on its side in an unknown script. Voyager 2, NASA, United States of America, Earth. His communication unit chimed. "Senior researcher Do-hyun," a voice said, "the Council requests your presence immediately." He sighed. Of course they did. Finding potential new intelligent life was always exciting. But this was different. This would change everything they thought they knew about survival and evolution. The walk to the council chamber felt longer than usual. Other researchers and officials stopped to stare as he passed. News traveled fast in the science division, and everyone knew about the strange probe that had drifted into their space 3 days ago. The council chamber was a large, circular room with seats rising in tiers like an ancient amphitheater. The 12 council members sat in their usual places, their expressions serious. At the center of the room, a large holographic display showed Earth's solar system. "Senior researcher," the head counselor said, "please present your findings." Do-hyun stepped forward, trying to keep his voice steady. "Honorable Council, 3 days ago, our Deep Space Monitoring Station detected an artificial object entering Council space. The object was identified as a probe of primitive but functional design. Its origin has been traced to the third planet of this previously unexplored solar system." He gestured to the hologram, and the display zoomed in on Earth. "The planet, which its inhabitants call Earth, defies our understanding of habitable worlds. The gravity is 1.5 times our standard. The atmospheric pressure would be lethal to most known species. The temperature variations are extreme, ranging from -50 to +50 degrees Celsius in some regions." Murmurs filled the chamber. One of the council members, an elderly scientist named Min-ki, leaned forward. "Are you suggesting that intelligent life evolved in these conditions?" "Not just evolved," Do-hyun replied, "but appears to be thriving. The probe contains images and data about the civilization that created it. They call themselves humans." He activated another display, showing pictures from the probe's databanks. Cities sprawled across Earth's surface. Vehicles moved through the air and on the ground. Huge structures reached toward the sky. "How is this possible?" another council member asked. "The oxygen levels alone should make complex life impossible. That's what makes this discovery so remarkable," a new voice said. Everyone turned to see Hyun, the council's leading xenobiologist, entering the chamber. She walked with quick, excited steps, her research tablet clutched in her hands. "I've been analyzing the biological data from the probe," she continued. "These humans aren't just surviving in these conditions. They evolved specifically to take advantage of them. Their high oxygen atmosphere allows for incredibly efficient energy production in their cells. The heavy gravity led to dense muscles and strong bones. They're built like living tanks compared to most species we know. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Some members argued loudly about the implications, while others demanded more proof. Du Hyun noticed Min Ki sitting quietly, his expression troubled. Hei Yun raised her voice over the chaos. I propose we send a research team to Earth. We need to study these humans up close. Think of what we could learn. Out of the question. Min Ki finally spoke. The conditions are too dangerous. We cannot risk our people on such a hazardous world. With respect, council member, Hei Yun countered. We've already detected primitive radio signals from Earth. They're on the verge of developing faster than light travel. First contact is inevitable. Wouldn't it be better to study them now, while we can do so safely and discreetly? The head counselor raised a hand for silence. Senior researcher Do Hyun, what is your recommendation? Do Hyun looked at the Earth rotating slowly in the hologram. Everything in his scientific training told him this planet should be impossible. Yet here it was, breaking all their rules about what was possible. I support Hei Yun's proposal, he said finally, but I recommend extreme caution. If the probe's data is accurate, Earth isn't just unusual. It's what our ancestors would have called a death world. Everything about it is hostile to life as we know it. The fact that intelligent life evolved there, it changes everything we thought we knew about survival. The council debated for hours. Do Hyun and Hei Yun answered countless questions about the probe's data, the potential risks, and the proposed research mission. Finally, the head counselor called for a vote. The council has reached a decision, he announced. We will send a research team to Earth, but with strict safety protocols. The team will be limited in size and will maintain complete stealth. No contact with the humans is permitted at this stage. Hei Yun could barely contain her excitement. When do we leave? In 3 standard cycles, the head counselor replied. That should give you time to prepare and study all available data. Senior researcher Do Hyun will oversee the mission from here, while you lead the team on Earth. As they left the council chamber, Hei Yun grabbed Do Hyun's arm. Can you believe it? We're actually going to study a death world species up close. This could be the most important xenobiological discovery in council history. Do Hyun nodded, but his expression was serious. Just remember, everything on that planet evolved to survive in conditions we consider lethal. The humans may look similar to us in basic form, but they're probably far more dangerous than they appear. That's exactly what makes them so fascinating. Hei Yun replied. Think about it. A species that considers our normal environments to be barely habitable. What else might they be capable of? Over the next 3 cycles, Do Hyun and Hei Yun worked constantly to prepare for the mission. They studied every bit of data from the probe, designed special protective equipment for the research team, and created detailed safety protocols. The team would consist of 5 members. Hei Yun is the lead researcher, a security chief named Ha-won, and 3 research assistants. Their ship would be equipped with the best stealth technology available, allowing them to observe Earth without being detected. The night before the mission's launch, Do Hyun sat in his office, studying the probe one last time. Something about the simple machine fascinated him. Its builders had launched it into space knowing it might never be found, might never complete its mission. Yet they had built it to last, filled it with information about themselves, and sent it out as a greeting to the universe. What kind of species would evolve on a death world and then reach out in friendship? Tomorrow, Hei Yun and her team would begin their journey to find out. Do Hyun hoped they were prepared for what they might discover. Something told him that the humans would surprise them in ways they couldn't imagine. He carefully placed the probe in its secure container. Soon, the council would have to decide how to handle inevitable first contact with Earth. The data Hei Yun's team collected would help shape that decision. Do Hyun looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, on a planet that should be too hostile for life, humans were looking up at these same stars. They were building ships, reaching for the cosmos, preparing to join the galactic community. The galaxy wasn't ready for them. But ready or not, the Deathworlders were coming. And nothing would ever be the same. He-Yun's heart raced as their ship entered Earth's atmosphere. Even through the vessel's powerful shields, she could feel the planet's heavy gravity pulling at her body. The rest of her team looked equally uncomfortable, except for Tadawon. The security chief sat calmly at his station, his eyes fixed on the sensor readings. Approaching landing zone, the ship's computer announced. Current location: remote mountain region. Coordinates match selected observation point. Their chosen landing site was in a place humans called Alaska. The area was sparsely populated, making it perfect for secret observation. The ship's cloaking technology would keep them hidden from Earth's primitive radar systems. As they landed, He-Yun checked her environmental suit one final time. The protection it offered was their only defense against Earth's crushing gravity and toxic atmosphere. The suit was a marvel of engineering, but it felt clumsy and heavy. "Remember," Ta-Won said to the team, "no direct contact with humans under any circumstances. We observe only. If you see any humans approaching, return to the ship immediately." The ship's main door opened, and Earth's atmosphere rushed in through the airlock. He-Yun's suit automatically adjusted to the pressure change. She took her first step onto the Deathworld surface. The landscape around them was beautiful but terrifying. Massive mountains reached into the sky, their peaks covered in white frozen water, snow, according to their research. The air was thin at this altitude, but still contained more oxygen than their home world. Dense forests of tall green plants, trees, covered the lower slopes. "Look at the size of those plants," one of her research assistants, Kita, said in awe. "The gravity here should make it impossible for anything to grow so tall." "That's exactly what makes Earth so fascinating," He-Yun replied. "Life here doesn't just survive these conditions, it finds ways to thrive in them." They set up their observation equipment around the ship. Special sensors would monitor human activities in the nearby town, while drones would gather data about the local environment. The team worked carefully, their movements slowed by the heavy gravity and bulky environmental suits. Suddenly, Ta-Won held up his hand for silence. In the distance, they could hear a strange rumbling sound. It was getting closer. "Everyone back to the ship," he ordered. But He-Yun remained still, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her caution. Through the trees, she could see something approaching, a human vehicle moving at incredible speed along a narrow dirt path. The vehicle appeared, bouncing wildly over the rough ground. It was some kind of recreational transport, what humans called an ATV. The driver wore no environmental protection, no pressure suit, nothing but light clothing and a helmet. They were casually operating complex machinery while enduring forces that should have been physically crushing. "They're using these conditions for entertainment," Kita whispered in disbelief. "They're having fun in an environment that would kill most species." The ATV disappeared around a bend in the path, its engine noise fading into the distance. The research team stood in stunned silence for several moments. "Back to work," Ta-Won finally said. "And He-Yun, next time I give an order, please follow it." Over the next few days, the team gathered more surprising data about human capabilities. They watched as humans hiked up steep mountain trails carrying heavy packs, apparently for recreation. They observed children playing in the snow, their small bodies adapting easily to temperature extremes that would be lethal to most species. But the real shock came during their second week on Earth. He-Yun was analyzing data in the ship when the ground began to shake. At first, she thought it was another earthquake. Earth's crust was constantly moving, another deadly feature of this unstable world. But then the ship's sensors detected something else. A massive avalanche was heading toward the nearby human town. "We have to evacuate," Ta-Won said, starting the ship's engines. "That much snow could damage even our shields." But He-Yun was watching the town through their observation feeds. Instead of panicking, the humans were organizing. Emergency vehicles with flashing lights were moving through the streets. People were calmly following evacuation plans. And most surprisingly, some humans were heading toward the danger. "What are they doing?" Kita asked, watching as a group of humans on specialized vehicles raced toward the avalanche path. "They're trying to save others," Hei-yun realized. "Look, there are still people in those buildings in the avalanche path. These humans are risking their lives to help them." The teen watched in amazement as the human rescue workers battled both time and nature. They moved with incredible speed and strength, helping people evacuate, reinforcing buildings, and creating channels to divert the flowing snow. Their bodies seemed to ignore the crushing gravity and high oxygen levels as they worked. "This isn't just about physical adaptation," Hei-yun said, recording her observations. "Their minds work differently too. Where we see unsurvivable conditions, they see challenges to overcome. When we would retreat, they advance. They've turned their harsh environment into a source of strength." Hours later, after the danger had passed, the team reviewed their sensor data. The humans had saved everyone in the avalanche's path. There were injuries, but no deaths. On any other world, an environmental disaster of that scale would have been catastrophic. "We need to update our research focus," Hei-yun told her team that evening. "We've been studying their physical adaptations, but that's only part of the story. These humans have developed mental and social adaptations that are just as important. They work together, they plan for disasters, they help each other survive." Keita nodded. "Did you notice how their children are taught to handle these conditions from an early age? We saw those school groups practicing emergency responses. They're literally training their young to thrive in an environment we consider impossible." The team spent the next month observing human activities across different regions. They watched as humans dove into the crushing depths of their oceans, climbed their tallest mountains, and worked in conditions ranging from freezing to sweltering. Everywhere they looked, humans were pushing the boundaries of what the Galactic community considered possible. One day, while observing a human military training exercise, Ta-1 made an observation that sent chills through the team. "They're not just surviving here," he said. "They're preparing to survive anywhere. Look at how they train. They're getting ready to face conditions even worse than their own world." Hei-yun realized he was right. Human space programs were already planning missions to other planets in their solar system, planets with even more extreme conditions than Earth. They were developing technologies and techniques to survive in environments that the galactic community had written off as completely uninhabitable. "We need to report this to the Council," she said. "Everything we thought we knew about survival and adaptation needs to be reconsidered. The humans aren't just an interesting anomaly. They're going to change the standards for the entire galaxy." As they prepared to leave Earth, Hei-yun took one final look at the planet through the ship's viewers. From space, it looked deceptively peaceful. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown land masses. Who would guess that this beautiful world was a crucible that had forged one of the most resilient species in known space? "Do you think we'll ever be able to handle conditions like they do?" Kita asked as they broke orbit. "Maybe," Hei-yun replied. "But first we need to understand how they think. Their greatest strength isn't their physical adaptations. It's their refusal to accept limitations. They look at deadly conditions and see opportunities. They face disasters and see chances to help each other." The ship accelerated toward home, leaving Earth behind, but Hei-yun knew this was just the beginning. Soon, humans would develop faster than light travel. They would leave their death world and join the galactic community. And when they did, nothing would ever be the same. In her final report to the Council, she wrote, "The humans have not merely survived their harsh world. They have mastered it. They have turned conditions we consider impossible into their normal environment. When they reach the stars, they won't be limited by the environmental constraints that bind other species. They are coming, and they will set new standards for what is possible. The only question is, Are we ready to learn from them? The main council chamber was completely silent as He-Yun's final report played on the giant holographic display. The images showed humans performing what seemed like impossible feats, climbing frozen waterfalls, diving into deep ocean trenches, and working in conditions that should have killed them instantly. Do-hyun watched the council members' reactions carefully. Some looked frightened, others fascinated. Min-ki, the elderly council member who had opposed the research mission, sat with his eyes closed, deep in thought. When the presentation ended, the head counselor spoke first. Senior researcher Do-hyun, what are your thoughts on these findings? Do-hyun stood up slowly, feeling the weight of the moment. Honorable Council, what we've discovered on Earth changes everything we thought we knew about survival and adaptation. The humans haven't just survived in hostile conditions, they've turned those conditions into advantages. He walked to the center of the chamber and brought up a new display showing comparison charts. Look at their physical capabilities. Their bones are nearly twice as dense as ours due to their high gravity. Their muscles can generate incredible force. Their respiratory system processes oxygen levels that would poison most species. But that's not the most important part. He-Yun added, joining him. Their minds work differently. They see obstacles as challenges to overcome, not limits to accept. When faced with deadly conditions, they don't just survive. They find ways to thrive. A young council officer named Ji-ho stepped forward. He was known for his unconventional ideas, and today he looked more excited than scared. I have a proposal, he said. Instead of just studying the humans, we should learn from them. Murmurs filled the chamber. Min-ki's eyes snapped open. Learn from them. They're Deathworlders. Their ways are too dangerous for normal species. But that's exactly why we should learn from them, Ji-ho argued. Look at our frontier colonies. 3 of them are facing environmental crises right now because conditions changed slightly from our comfortable norms. The humans could teach us how to handle those changes. Do-hyun nodded in agreement. Ji-ho is right. The humans have developed something we never considered. Adaptability itself. They don't just survive in one set of conditions, they can survive in almost any conditions. The debate continued for hours. Council members argued back and forth about the implications of the Earth discoveries. Some wanted to isolate humans completely when they reached space, fearing their influence. Others saw opportunities for learning and growth. Then the emergency alert sounded. Red lights flashed throughout the chamber as urgent messages appeared on every screen. The colony crisis Ji-ho had mentioned was getting worse. On 3 different worlds, environmental systems were failing. Thousands of colonists were at risk. The head counselor called for immediate action. We need solutions, not debates. Our traditional approaches aren't working. Does anyone have new ideas? Ji-ho stepped forward again. Let me form a special team. We'll use what we've learned from studying humans to develop new survival strategies. Give us one chance to prove this can work. After a tense discussion, the council agreed. They had no other options. Ji-ho would lead a team to help the colonies, using methods inspired by human approaches to survival. Over the next few weeks, Do-hyun worked closely with Ji-ho's team. They studied every detail of He-yun's research, looking for ideas they could adapt. The humans' physical advantages couldn't be copied, but their methods and mindset could be. Look at how they handle cold environments, Ji-ho said during one planning session. They don't just rely on technology. They teach their bodies to adapt. They have something called cold training, where they gradually expose themselves to lower temperatures. Do-hyun nodded excitedly. And their emergency responses, they don't just react to disasters. They prepare for them. They run drills. They practice in safe conditions. They work together as teams. The team developed new protocols based on human methods. They created training programs to help colonists adapt to changing conditions. They designed emergency response systems that focused on teamwork and preparation. Most importantly, they worked to change how people thought about survival. Stop thinking about what's comfortable. Jai-ho told the colonial administrators. Start thinking about what's possible. The humans live every day in conditions we consider lethal, and they do it by refusing to accept limitations. Slowly, things began to change. The colony on Neris IV, where temperatures had risen beyond comfortable levels, adopted human-style adaptation training. Instead of relying solely on environmental controls, colonists learned to function in the heat. They developed new work schedules based on temperature patterns, just as humans did in their hot regions. On Callan II, where atmospheric pressure had increased, colonists used modified versions of human high-pressure adaptation techniques. They built pressure chambers for gradual adaptation training. Workers learned to recognize early signs of pressure sickness and help each other cope. The most dramatic change came on Veros II, where gravity fluctuations threatened the colony's survival. Instead of evacuating, colonists used human-inspired strength training and support equipment to adapt to the changing conditions. They even started organizing gravity adaptation competitions, turning their challenge into a source of pride, just as humans did with their extreme sports. As reports of success came in from the colonies, attitudes in the council began to shift. Even Min-Ki had to admit that the human-inspired approaches were working. Perhaps, he said during one session, we've been looking at this wrong. We saw the humans as dangerous because they came from a death world. But maybe they're not dangerous because of their world. They're successful because of how they approach challenges. Hei-yun, who had been analyzing data from the colonies, presented her latest findings to the council. The colonists aren't just surviving better, she explained. They're becoming more confident, more innovative. When new problems arise, they look for solutions instead of giving up. They're starting to think like humans. The council chambers, once filled with fear about the implications of human contact, now buzzed with excitement about new possibilities. Traditional survival metrics were being rewritten. Training programs were being redesigned. The very definition of what made a planet habitable was changing. One day, as Do-hyun sat in his office reviewing the latest colonial reports, Jai-ho came to visit. The young officer looked tired but satisfied. "Have you seen the latest numbers from Veros II?" Jai-ho asked. "They're not just handling the gravity changes. They're developing new construction techniques to take advantage of them. Last week, they built a bridge using a method they learned from studying human architecture in high-gravity areas." Do-hyun smiled. "It's not just about surviving anymore, is it? It's about adapting, growing, finding new ways to succeed. The humans taught us that survival isn't about avoiding challenges. It's about learning to overcome them." As they talked, a new alert appeared on Do-hyun's screen. The Deep Space Monitoring Station had detected something. Earth's first faster-than-light ship was nearing completion. Soon, humans would join the galactic community. "Are we ready for them?" Jai-ho asked, looking at the alert. Do-hyun thought about everything that had changed since they first found that simple probe. "No," he said, "but thanks to them, we're learning to adapt. And maybe that's the most important lesson they have to teach us." 6 months had passed since the colony crisis, and Do-hyun barely recognized the Galactic Science Academy anymore, where once scientists had worked quietly at their desks. Now training areas filled the buildings. In one room, researchers practiced in increased gravity chambers. In another, teams ran emergency response drills. The changes that had started with Jai-ho's colonial rescue program had grown into something much bigger. Today was special. The first class of the new Joint Species Crisis Response Team was graduating. Do-hyun watched from his seat as Hei-yun, now the program's lead instructor, addressed the mixed group of trainees. "When we first discovered Earth," she said to the gathered crowd, "we thought humans were impossible. We called their planet a death world because it broke all our rules about survival. But now we understand. They didn't break the rules. They showed us that our rules were too limited." The graduating class sat in their special training suits, designed to help different species handle various environmental challenges. There were tall, thin Arisians who had once needed perfect atmospheric pressure to survive. Now they could handle pressure changes that would have killed their ancestors. Short, sturdy Craxians who had evolved in low gravity now moved confidently in Earth-normal conditions. Each of you has pushed past what your species thought was possible, Heian continued. You've learned to think like humans, to see challenges as opportunities, to work together, to adapt and overcome. Today, you become the first official multi-species emergency response team in galactic history. Do-hyun remembered how controversial this program had been when Jae-ho first proposed it. Many thought it was too dangerous to train different species in human survival methods. But the success of the colony rescue program had changed minds. When other worlds faced environmental crises, they started asking for help from teams trained in human techniques. The ceremony continued as each graduate demonstrated their new capabilities, and Erigian moved smoothly through an obstacle course under triple their normal atmospheric pressure. A Craxian lifted rescue equipment in high gravity. Most impressively, they worked together, supporting each other's weaknesses, just as they had learned from studying human emergency teams. Ta-won, who had become the program's security chief, stood next to Do-hyun. "Remember when we first landed on Earth?" he asked quietly. "We were terrified of their gravity, their atmosphere, their weather. Now look at us, teaching others to handle conditions even worse than Earth's." The demonstration reached its final test. The graduates faced a simulation of a space station crisis, complete environmental failure, artificial gravity malfunction, and structural damage. In the past, such a situation would have been considered unsurvivable. The standard response would have been immediate evacuation. But this team was different. They moved through the failing station with confidence, their bodies adapting to the changing conditions. They rescued trapped crew members, repaired critical systems, and stabilized the environment. Most importantly, they did it together, each species contributing their unique strengths to the mission. As the simulation ended successfully, the audience erupted in applause. Even Min-ki, who had finally accepted a position as program advisor, was smiling. The old scientist had become one of the program's strongest supporters after seeing how it helped colonies survive. The term Deathworlder doesn't mean what it used to. Min-ki said to Do-hyun during the reception. "When I was young, it meant something to fear. Now it's becoming a mark of respect. To say someone has Deathworlder training means they're prepared for anything." Do-hyun nodded. "The humans showed us that survival isn't about avoiding difficult conditions. It's about learning to thrive in them. Their influence has spread far beyond what we expected." He was right. Across the galaxy, changes were happening. Colony ships now carried gravity variation chambers to help settlers adapt to their new worlds. Schools taught children adaptation techniques inspired by human training methods. Research stations studied extreme environments that were once considered too dangerous to approach. The biggest change was in how people thought about challenges. Instead of seeking only perfect conditions, species were learning to adapt and grow. The humans' approach to survival, face the challenge, work together, find a way forward, had become a model for the entire galaxy. Later that evening, Heian called an important meeting. The room was filled with program leaders, council members, and graduates. On the main screen was a message they had all been waiting for. Earth had successfully tested its first faster-than-light drive. "It's time," Heian said. "We've learned from them in secret. Now we need to prepare for actual contact. They'll be joining the galactic community soon, and we need to be ready." Jae-ho stepped forward with a new proposal. "I suggest we create an exchange program. When the humans reach us, we show them what we've learned from them. We share how their example has changed our understanding of survival. Then we ask them to teach us directly." The idea sparked excited discussion. Some worried that the humans might be angry about being studied without their knowledge. Others thought they would be proud to see how their methods had helped other species. "We should show them the graduation demonstration," Taiwan suggested. "Let them see how their approach to survival has helped different species work together. Show them that their influence has made the galaxy stronger." As they planned for first contact, Do-hyun thought about that first probe that had started everything. It seemed so long ago now. The simple machine that had carried a message of friendship from a world they had thought too dangerous to support life. The humans had sent that probe knowing it might never be found. They had reached out into space, despite having no proof they weren't alone. That same spirit, the willingness to face the unknown, to reach out despite uncertainty, had inspired changes throughout the galaxy. A week later, Do-hyun sat in his office, updating the Galactic Standards of Survival document. The old version had been all about avoiding danger, staying within safe limits, maintaining perfect conditions. The new version was different. Survival, he wrote, is not determined by the conditions we face, but by our ability to adapt to them. The true measure of a species' capability is not what environment they evolved in, but how they respond to challenges beyond their normal experience. The humans of Earth have demonstrated that with proper training, preparation, and cooperation, the boundaries of possible survival can be pushed far beyond traditional limits. He paused, thinking about how far they had come since finding that probe. Then he added one final line. The greatest survival trait is not physical strength or technological advancement, but the willingness to face challenges, adapt to change, and help others do the same. This is the lesson of the Deathworlders, and it has become the new standard for survival in our galaxy.